Hello, everyone. My name is Elinor Larney. I'm the Registrar of the College of Occupational Therapists. Welcome to our session on board elections for the 2025 election session. Today, we're going to be talking about a little bit about regulation, understanding the role of OTs in self-regulation and governance, and if you were to join the board, what would that be like? Also tell you a little bit about what's going on at the college right now, talk about what the meeting and time commitment might be if you were to join the board, and then some of the election processes that you will need to know if you decide to pursue this opportunity. There'll be lots of time for questions at the end, so we will have a chat open and you can pose your questions there. So why does regulation matter? It's very important we have a system of regulation in Ontario that protects the public's right to quality health services. Also, if an occupational therapist were to engage in inappropriate behavior or something that was of concern to a member of the public receiving that services, the college can investigate and we can enforce the standards and guidelines that we have for OT practice. So why get involved with elections? So we are self-regulated in Ontario. That means that the profession is involved with the regulation of their own profession. So that means that we have members of the profession who are on our board. We have members of the profession who sit on committees that help make decisions and help us do our work. And while we do have public members on our board, they are not the majority. So the occupational therapists get to set the standards and make the rules for the occupational therapy practice in Ontario. So it's very important for OTs in the province to get involved and remembering that, of course, we are here for regulation of the profession and public protection. But it gives occupational therapists an opportunity to participate in this, sharing their own perspectives and thoughts as part of the future of the profession, help set the strategic direction for the college, and connect and reconnect with diverse members of the profession and the public members from across the province. I find that one of the most interesting things for the OTs who are participating in the college is meeting other occupational therapists from all around the province and sharing their learnings and ideas with each other, and it makes for a really rich experience. So the board is here to make decisions in the public interest. So uh, any occupational therapist, when they're serving on the board, would have to take off their OT hat and use that information that they have as an OT, though, to make decisions about what is in the best interests of the public. We also have committees that occupational therapists must be on when they're on the board. So we have a governance committee, a finance and audit committee, and an executive committee. And so those committees work and they help the board function much better. And it also helps those committees really dive into that information very deeply before it then comes to the board. So some of the things that the board makes decisions about are standards of practice. So what is the expectations of occupational therapists in the province, and also professional conduct. So what is expected from occupational therapists in terms of their ethical conduct, conflict of interest, that sort of thing. Decisions are made about the competencies for entry to practice. So the board is responsible for ensuring that the entry to practice rules are appropriate and what is expected from OTs in terms of their quality assurance as we go through our professional practice every day. Also making sure that the way we work at the board and at the college in terms of our policies, regulations, and bylaws are all in accordance with the relevant legislation. So those are examples of some of the things that the board does. And now we'll talk a little bit about the board priorities for the next few years, and at least this one. So we have a brand new strategic plan that we are just operationalizing as of this spring. So that'll take us for the next 3 years. So that's an important thing that the board will get updates on, and it's lots of work that the college staff are working on. We are also aware that of the health human resource challenges that are in the province at the current time. It's not only just in our province, but nationally. And one of the roles of the college is working with the Ministry of Health to assist them with whatever solutions can be thought up to assist with this problem. We are also working on our national competencies, which were released in 2021. So those competencies are woven throughout the work that we do at the college, including quality assurance, as well as we hope to launch a new program for people who've been out of the practice for a little while. We call it our reentry program. And so using those national competencies to ensure that occupational therapists who are coming back after a time away from practice are coming back in a competent and in a competent way. We also have EDI and truth and reconciliation goals, which are important, and they align with our new competencies as well. There's a whole new section on the competencies that include topics related to that. It's important to the profession, and it's an important thing in our community at the moment. We also have a brand new governance model. As you notice, we only have three electoral districts. We've um, made the board a bit smaller. We have less electoral districts. And so therefore, ensuring that we are working to this new model, as well as we've separated out the membership of a board member from being on statutory committees. And so that changes some of our process. So just working on governance and how we're going to manage that as we move forward. We have many places that we need to report to government, to national data collections, High, and so making sure that our reporting is all where it needs to be and using our technology to make those reports as effective and efficient as possible, as well as ensuring that the board has the information that they need in order to make good decisions. So those are some of the things that we're working on. We also are doing some work nationally, which is really important, and that links back to our strategic plan. So there is a regulator in every province in Canada, and we are really trying to work together through ACOTO to do the best, most efficient, effective job that we can, and helping each other do our work is a really important thing that we are working on. So there's just a taste of some of the board priorities, and I'll move on to the next section. So in terms of the elections process, how does that work? Um, I just mentioned that we reduced the number of electoral districts from 6 to 3, and they rotate on a 3-year schedule. And this year we're holding the elections in District 1, which very similar to the old District 1, which is basically the City of Toronto and Peel region. And for your information, even though it looks like that district is tiny and the other districts are gigantic, the population is pretty much the same in all 3 districts. In terms of what this work is, the board meeting time frame. So we have 4 board meetings a year, and it's usually 5 days because in October we'll have a 2-day board meeting, which includes an education day. And we are electing 2 people, and it's for a 3-year term. And boards, directors usually all sit on one other committee. The meetings probably require a couple hours of preparation ahead of time. So you got to read the board package before you come or the committee package before the meeting starts. So that is what is involved. So I'll tell you now a little bit about the committees that we have at the college. So the board would be serving on board committees, but some of the other committees we have at the college do the work that the college is required to do. And the first one is the executive committee, and that actually is a board committee, but it is what we call one of the statutory committees. So it is there as a result of legislation. So in the Regulated Health Professions Act, all colleges have to have all of these committees. And so the executive committee is made up of the board chair, the board vice chair, as well as 2 other members who round out the executive. And they're there just to help the board plan what they're going to be deliberating at their meetings. So planning the board meetings, planning any board education that needs to be done. Um, and if there's anything important that needs to be done in between board meetings, the executive committee would look at that, as well as making sure that they're doing a good review of the risks that the college faces. The other statutory committees are related to registrants, and the first one is our registration committee. So they're responsible for making sure that all of the rules related to who gets to be an occupational therapist in Ontario, that all those rules are followed and that they're as up to date as possible. If we think that there's somebody who shouldn't be registered for whatever reason, they're not meeting one of the requirements, that that person's information would come to the registration committee and they would make a decision about whether that person is eligible to be registered or not. Or they may recommend some education or something that needs to be done in the meantime. So that's the registrations committee's overall job. The Quality Assurance Committee is there to oversee the tools and the processes we use to ensure that all occupational therapists who are registered with us stay and maintain their competences. So they would be overseeing the tools that are used for the competency assessment, as well as they're the oversight body for the e-learning module and the processes we use for the self-assessment and the annual professional development plan. The Inquiries, Complaints, and Reports Committee are there to screen any matter of concern about an occupational therapist that comes to our attention. And so they would look at it. So, for example, the public, member of the public might complain about the services they've received from an occupational therapist, or we might receive a report from an employer that they have terminated an occupational therapist due to their conduct or their competence. So the college gets involved with those and takes a look at them to see what the concerns are. If they're very serious, they would go to the discipline committee. For less serious complaints or reports, we may recommend some education, we may recommend some reflection, or there may be no recommendations. So that's the Inquiries, Complaints, and Reports Committee. Discipline Committee is exactly that. For those occupational therapists where we are concerned that their behavior is very serious and that they require sanctioning, they would be referred to the Discipline Committee to determine whether they have performed an act of misconduct that requires a sanction. That's what the Discipline Committee is about. All of our board members participate in that. The Fitness to Practice Committee is there in case there is a health concern or some other reason why an occupational therapist is not able to practice, either competence or incapacity, and they're there to take steps if the OT is not taking those steps themselves. And finally, the Patient Relations Committee, their job is to make sure that the relationship between occupational therapists and their patients is effective and appropriate. So they become involved with our code of ethics, some of the standards related to professional boundaries, prevention of sexual abuse, and they are all their work is related to that relationship between patients and occupational therapists. We have three non-statutory committees, and they basically help the college do its work. First is the practice subcommittee, and their job is to review the standards of practice and make recommendations to the board about what should be changed and updated, as well as recommending any new standards that might be appropriate. And then the quality assurance subcommittee helps us with the background information and some of the cases and information you see in our e-learning modules. So those are two very busy committees, and those are not board committees. So all of the people who sit on those committees come from, those are all occupational therapists and some public members, but the occupational therapists all come onto those committees by submitting their resume when we do a call, and they're selected by the nominations committee, and the board is recommended that they be appointed. So that is pretty much, we do a call out if anybody's interested. So it may be that right now you're interested in the board, but you're not sure you want to do that yet, and maybe you want to serve on on a committee. So we will have some opportunities in the in after the holidays, so in the new year, and from time to time we will be looking for committee members because people serve for finite terms, and so when their term is up, then we need to find somebody else, and so we look through the whole community of occupational therapists to support self-regulation by working on one of these committees. I would say participation on these committees is really very rewarding for occupational therapists who get involved. They get to meet occupational therapists from all over the province, working in different practice areas, very interesting work, and the collegial aspect of those committees is very, very rewarding for those who work together on those groups. We have three board committees. So if you are elected to the board, you will likely be sitting on one of these committees and serving. So first is the governance committee, and they ensure that the board has the competencies required to work appropriately and make the proper decisions. The finance and audit committee is there to oversee the finances and make sure that the college has the resources that it needs to do its work appropriately and according to legislation. And finally, our nominations committee, whose job it is to look at all the resumes that come to us and make sure that occupational therapists are appropriately appointed to each one of the committees as required. And finally, we have two advisory committees. One is our Equity Perspectives, and the other is the Indigenous Insights Committees. Both of those committees provide important advice for us on our standards and other policies of the college to ensure that we take a varied perspective into account when making decisions about how those policies get approved and made. So that's our committee framework. The board, as I said, will be participating on board committees and the executive, and other occupational therapists who work in Ontario can have an opportunity to be involved in these three other groups of committees as their opportunities come up from time to time. So when you become a board member or you participate in a committee, the college will provide training for you. So we don't expect you to know everything about college work. So we do provide training. So there is an online orientation module that is required for anybody who wants to be a board member. And it's highly recommended for anybody who's interested in being on or serving on a committee. We do extensive training about the committees that you're working on. There's education as we go. So if a topic comes up that you need to know about before you can make a decision, we absolutely will get that organized. Every committee has a staff support member who knows the workings of that committee and makes sure that all the committee members and the board members know what it is they need to do. So we will train about, if you're on the finance committee, for example, you may not have learned about that, but you will get training about what that all means, how to read a financial statement, what's important to pay attention to, and also we do some training related to governance, which is really helpful. So we do have a board competency framework, and we don't expect that every single board member is going to have all of these attributes, knowledge and skills, or diverse perspectives. But we hope that in the end, once we have a full board complement, that the makeup of the board will include all of these things. But we will also provide training for competencies that we're missing and also to help all board members sort of understand especially the knowledge and skills. But we do expect that every director will have the following attributes that are listed there. So accountability, we expect all directors, the board directors, the elected ones, have accountability for the decisions that they make, that they work on the board in a collaborative way, and that they have the communication skills needed in order to deliberate in a inclusive, objective, and respectful manner. We also expect that all of our board members maintain a public interest focus. So, we have to keep our OT hat um, off and our public protection hat on when we're doing work at the board. And also that they would have the self-awareness to hear feedback and improve their work if there's necessary changes needed to be made. We hope that our board will be made up of people with leadership skills, people who have some experience being on a board. Certainly by the time you've been on the board, you will be getting experience, and that's part of the learning that comes with being in self-regulation at a college. Regulatory understanding is really important. So what is the Regulated Health Professions Act, and what are the things that we are required to do as a college? We are mandated by legislation, so what does that mean? Having a good understanding of how to manage risks, how to identify them, how to mitigate them. And as a board, you would be responsible for overseeing that to make sure the college is looking at its risks and appropriately managing that. So having people who understand about risk management is really important. How we work with others is really important, and why working with others is important. So provincially, nationally, really important to understand that we are not just a standalone group all by ourselves doing our work. We have to work with others. Understanding the importance of strategic planning is another knowledge and skill that we hope that people who come to the board will bring, but if not, they will learn it. So what is the importance of a strategic plan, and how does that affect the work at the college? Understanding how to manage finances is important. All of the funds that we get from the college come from our registrants, and so we have to manage those well, and we have to make sure that we have the resources to do the job that we're required to do through legislation. All of our meetings are done, all of our packages are electronic, so understanding how to manage the world in an electronic way, so using Zoom, um, being able to work with technology is important. We also really hope that our board will be as diverse as possible to bring a range of perspectives. So it could be the professional area that you're working in, what part of the province you're from. It may be different ages, different cultures, different genders. All of those different perspectives and backgrounds bring an experience and a knowledge that makes the board's decisions the very best possible. So, we do have 2 board positions up for election this time, but there are committee spots available. So I'd really encourage people to uh, apply to be on a committee if that's where you're at in your career at the moment. So responsibilities of board directors. Really important to come prepared for meetings. All of our board directors do get some time that we compensate for preparing for the meetings, and we expect everyone to come prepared. Avoiding and disclosing conflict of interest, really important. So when we're making decisions, it's in the public interest, and if one of your interests might interfere with that, it's really important that we manage that well. There is information that comes to the board that is very confidential, so being able to manage confidentiality is incredibly important. Coming prepared and being able to deliberate with others. So having that good communication skills where we can discuss with others and in a respectful manner is really important. And making decisions in the public interest. We have a code of conduct that we expect all boards to abide to, and bylaws that we also expect are adhered to. We have some fiduciary duties that board members are required to follow, so they must act honestly in good faith and always with a view to the best interests of the college and its mandate, and relating to others with collegiality, respect, diligence, and active participation. So our board meetings, we have one usually at the end of March, and that's where we'll elect the officers. So that's on our executive committee. So who is the chair of the board, the vice chair, etc. We have one meeting in June. Our meeting in October is a 2-day meeting where we have an education day, and we have a board meeting in January. There's also committee meetings that are peppered throughout that. So that happens as well. So we're electing 2 directors, each with a 3-year term. And this is District 1, so Toronto, Peel, Mississauga, Brampton, and Caledon. And so in order to stand for election, you must work, but if you're not working right now, you must live in the district that is up for election. You must be an occupational therapist, so registered with a college in good standing, so not in default of any fees or up on a discipline matter of any kind. You can't have been a director, owner, or anything of any one of our professional associations, and you must complete the college's pre-election module as well. Anybody who wants to stand for a board position, one member of our nomination committee will call to have a quick meeting just to make sure you're in the right place and if you have any questions and that sort of thing. And of course, you can always call me if you have questions about the process that I haven't covered here. So it's all done electronically. So we're going to send a link and you can nominate yourself, but you need to find 3 people to support your nomination. And there is the online pre-election module. There's a consent form. Um, once all your paperwork is done, the nominations committee will have a review of it just to make sure that you're eligible, and we'll likely have a short meeting with you. So of course, make sure that your email is correct so that you will get our uh, information and the link to the nomination form. And you can find all of our modules and all that stuff on our website in the election section. So the nominations will open on Wednesday, December 11th. They're going to close at the end of January, so on January 29th. We will open voting, and it's about a 2-week window, so Tuesday, February the 18th, and it will close promptly at 2 o'clock on March the 5th. And if anybody has any questions, I would be happy to take them now. Thank you. Thank you for joining us, and I can be found at the email here or the phone number there. So welcome any phone calls if you have questions about the process. Thanks very much. Okay, we'll end.